Daf Samach Beis Amud Aleph will begin Daf Samach Aleph Amud Beis, 7 lines from the bottom. Tanan Hasan. We learned elsewhere in the Baraisa, V'chulim B'tamim Begadim. All of them are B'tamim Begadim. So we learned previously that if the dam of the par spilled, then you have to bring another par. We had a machlokes if you just continue from where you left off, or you have to start from the beginning. But you can have a situation where you have several of the parim. You have several of them because of the dam spilled. Then you have to bring another one, and you have to couple them and do another azor. Now, what is done with all of these bowls? What do we do with them? We have more than one, so we know that the halach is that after you do the hazos of the dam, you take the par, you take it out to be burnt on the place of the Beis Hadeshin, and we know that the par is metame, it's also metame begodim. Now, what about all of the other par? What about the rest of them? Does that have the same din? So Tanan Hasan v'chul metame begodim. They're all metame begodim. It's from Beis Hadeshin. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon. They hold they all have the same din. That it's all the same din as the first one. They all have that din, and they're all metame. However, the Chacham say that no, ein metame begodim, ve'ein yisrael from Beis Hadeshin. They're not burnt on the Beis Hadeshin. They're not metame begodim. El ha'achar, only the last one. Hoil v'gar by kapara, because that was the completion of the kapara. The completion of the kapara was the last one, so that's the only one that has that din of that it has to be burnt, and it's metame begodim. And the way Rashi learns, it's a machlokes Rishonim, other Rishonim learn differently, or Beno Hananel, etc. They learn differently, but Rashi learns that doesn't make a difference if whether the spilling took place within the middle of a segment or even after a segment. Meaning, even if the blood spilled after, let's say, the hazah of the Kodesh Kodashim, which means that you don't have to repeat the hazahs of the Kodesh Kodashim. Nevertheless, it's only the gemar that requires, that has this din of burning at Beis Hadeshin, metame and begodim. And Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, and they hold that it's all of them are burnt in Beis Hadeshin, and it doesn't make a difference, according to them, whether the spilling took place even within a segment. According to their Lishita, so they hold that even if the spilling took place within a segment, let's say, for instance, it was in the middle of the hazahs of the Kodesh Kodashim, they hold that the replacement one, the hazahs, you just continue from where you left off. They hold there's no difference where it took place. All of them have to be nisrafim Beis Hadeshin. Boy mine Rava min Rav Nachman had the following shaila: Kama se'iri mishalech. What about the soyer? Let's say the blood of the soyer spilled out. Now, when you bring a replacement, you can't just bring one goat. You have to do a geirel. So you have to bring a pair. So there's going to be an additional soyer la'azazel that's designated as soyer la'azazel. How many does he send out to Azazel? He'll have now several goats, perhaps even many. He has the original one. Now, if the blood of the Sorel Hashem spilled out, he has to bring another pair and make a geirel. So he has another Sorel Azazel. So in this case over here, how many does he send out? So l'chera, you would say that the shaila is only a shaila according to Rav Elazar and Shimon that say that by the case of the par, all of them are all burnt and metame begodim. Not only the last one, because according to the Chum, that by the par it's only the last one. The should say certainly over here that it's only the last one that's sent to Azazel. But the Tetzarash says that perhaps the shaila is even according to the Chachamim, because over there was a takola. Over there, in the previous case by the par, the blood spilled out. There was something that was incomplete by the previous ones. Here, there's no defect in any of the goats. They're all roy lazazel. They're all fit to be lazazel. So, do we say they're all sent out, or the last one? Amrlei said to him, he sent out his whole age, his whole herd. He sends out all of these animals. Amrloi said, well, in the case of the par, you say that all of them are burnt, and so you should say the same thing. Does he burn his whole flock? So Gemara says, "Midami." Hasam like Sivaisai. In the case of the par, it doesn't say it. It doesn't say it in the singular. Therefore, you can say it, according to Rav Elazar and Rav Shimon, that all of them are sent out to be burned. But Hachak Sivaisai. But here, in the case of the Soyer, it says Isai. It says Leshalach Oisai La It, the singular, one is sent to Azazel, not more than one. Itma Rav Papi Mishmei Rav Hama Rishon Mishalech. He says it's the first one that's sent out. Rav Shimi Mishmei Rav Amar Achra Mishalech. He says it's the last one. So now Bishlam Rav Shimi Mishmei Rav Amar Achra Mishalech. We understand why it's the last one. Kasavar Hoyle Vegamar by Kapora, because it's the last one that the Kapora is complete with it, because its pair, the pair of the last one, was the dam that you did the hazor for. So that's the way the Ritva explains it. The kapara, what does it mean the kapara was done with the last one? It was completed with the last one. Meaning, the goyrel that you did a goyrel, the one was designated Lashem, one was Azazel. The pair of the last one that was designated, the Azazel, that pair was a Sor Lashem, where you completed the kapara. So this is the counterpart of the one you completed the kapara, so I understand why that's the one that you sent out. Hello, Rav Papi Shmei Rav Micah Savar. But why? What does he hold? Why should it be the first one? Answer: Savar Law Kirav Yaisi Damar Mitzvah Rishon. He holds in general, like Rav Yaisi, that says you always go with the first one. The first one has a chashivas, so that if you have a choice, the first one is the one that's chosen. So Gemara asks, hey, Rav Yaisi, which Rav Yaisi are you referring to that says mitzvah rishon? Idlei Rav Yaisi to kupas. If you're going to say it's Rav Yaisi as far as the baskets of the shkolim that they collected, the machzas shkolim, and it was put in several baskets. This none, we learned in the Mishnah in shkolim, that shalosh kupas shal shalosh soin shabem terminus olishka. There were 3 baskets, each one contained 3 soin, which they withdrew the money from those baskets they withdrew that money, and that was used for the karbanos. So they withdrew that money from the lishka, and they used that money for the karbanos. Aleph Beis Gimel. They were labeled one Aleph Beis and Gimel. They were timed 3 times a year. They had collections of the matzah shekel. And the first one that was collected and put into the box was Aleph, and then Beis, and then Gimel. V'tanya, I was taught in the Bryce Summer of Yaisi, Lama Kosalam, Aleph, Beis, Gimel. Why were they labeled? Leda Ezemehem Nitmarisha. In order to know which one was withdrawn first. Lahavi Amenarisha, to know that the one that was withdrawn first, that one was the one you use for the korbanos, for the tomid. That's one that you use first. Shem mitzvah barishan. It's a mitzvah to use it from the first one. So you label them to know which one was withdrawn first, and that you took and used for the korbanos, the ones that they were timed first. So you see that it's a mitzvah barishan. Where it says, no, how can you bring a comparison from that case to this case? Maybe that's different. Maybe the reason over there we take dafka from the first one, because over there at the time that the first one became fit, the second one wasn't fit. Meaning, therefore, you had a mitzvah on the rishon, it was chal on the rishon. The second one, it only came later. Meaning, in the case over there is they withdrew the money from the list, they retirement, they withdrew money from the lishka. So now that money that they withdrew could be used for the korban, that could be used for the korban. The second one, they weren't tired yet. So now later on, when they were tired, the second one, well, the first one was roy. So that one already was roy. It should have been used for a mitzvah. We don't take it away. We leave it with that designation. The second one only became fit later on. They withdrew it later on. But that's over there. But over here, they're now all roy at the same time. They all became roy at the same time when the hazos of the dam are completed, when the hazos of the Sor Lashem are completed. Now, all of the Sor Lazozel, they're all fit to be sent Lazozel. Which one do you choose? It's not like one became fit to send out before the other ones. So you can't bring a raya from that case to here. Ella, the Gemara says, Rabbi Yosi the Pesach, it's a raya from Rabbi Yosi by the Korban Pesach. Because the Sanya Hamafish Pesach Avad, if someone has designated an animal for Korban Pesach and it gets lost, and then he designated a replacement one, and then after he designated a replacement one, then the first one is found. Now they're both roy, they're both here. Now when it comes the after Chatzos, when it becomes Bein Harabayim, when it's time to do the Korban Pesach, at the same time you have both of these animals that are roy for the Korban Pesach. Which one do you choose? So Eza Mehem Sheyakrev Sheyirtze Yakrev Divracham. Chum say you can choose whichever one you want. He said there's no special mitzvah with one over the other. But Rav Yosi Omer mitzvah rishon. He says the mitzvah is with the rishon. Is the better to use the first one. That's the first one that you were makdish. That's the first one that was designated for the mitzvah. That's the one you should use. However, but if the second one was better quality, Teis Shana explains in the Korban Pesach, it's also significant because that has achilo, you have to eat from the Korban Pesach. So if the second one is better, then it takes priority. But otherwise, we say mitzvah berisha here also by the Sorah La Zozel, we should use the first one. New parak zok the Mishnah. Shnei Seir Yom Kippurim, the two goes of Yom Kippur. Mitzvah Shiu Shneim Shavim. They have to be. The mitzvah is that they should be alike. They should be similar. They should be alike. Bimar in appearance, meaning that Rashi explained that they should have the same color. If they're both black or they're both gray, they should be the same. Uvakaima in height, ubadamim in value. Uvaleki chosan keachad. They should be purchased at the same time. Either that you buy both of them from one seller at the same time, or Teis Sham says if they're two different sellers, there's a shaliach who is appointed to effect the transaction at the same time. Now that's only l'chadchila. V'afal pi shein shavim, but even if they're not similar, ksher, it's still kosher. And similarly, if they're not purchased at the same time, also ksher. So this din that they should be similar, they should be purchased at the same time, is a mitzvah, but it's not ma'akev. If one of them died, if it's before the girl was done, before they made the girl, then you just purchase another one to be a pair for the first one. You don't have to buy another pair, another two. You buy just a singular one and replace the one that died, and now do the girl with these two. But if you made a girl and then one of them died, so if it's after the girl, then you have to bring another pair and you have to make another girl. And he said, is false. He says it's false. Im shel shem meis. He says if the one of the shem died, the shalom a girl a shem is kaim tach. Then the one now with the new girl, he has to do a pair. So he does a girl. He says the one with the girl now is l'shem should be its replacement. V'im shel is ozel meis. And then if the one of the zozel died, then we say that sha'olav ha'girl la'zozel is kaim tach. When in the new girl, the one that is a zozel, that should be in the replacement. Now, what do you do with the second one? Well, if the Azazel died, you have a new girl, and the one of them is the replacement for the Azazel that died. But now you have the second one, which was a Shem you already have from beforehand, the one Lashem. What do you do? So Vasheni, so the second one, which is a duplicate, Vasheni, you let it get a graze to get some mum, and V'yamachi, you sell it, and the money goes for the Korban Tzibur. It goes for a Nidvas Tzibur. When the Mizbeach is bottled, you use that to be mak of the Korban. So v'yesheni yirat shista v'yamak v'yiplu dam l'radova. She'ein achatas tzibur mesa, because achatas of a tzibur is not left to die. Meaning the Tana is bevorning. And we know there's a Allah l'meishim Sinai that one of the cases, 5 chatzos that are left to die. One is shekipra ba'aleh. If the owner had a kapara with another animal, then the one that this one is left over is left to die. You don't let it graze to get a mum and use the money for an adova. Now over here we're saying that, well, there are two of a Sor Lashem, there are two Sor Lazazel. Now we say one you're makriv, so why shouldn't you say that the other one should be considered a chata shekipru ba'ala? You have a leftover one you already had a kapara with another one. Why isn't it left to die? Why do we say over here that's Yirsh Yistayim? Because that then is only by a yochid. But she'en chatas tzibur mesa. By a tzibur we don't say chata shekipru ba'ala lamisam. But Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Thomas, Rabbi Yehuda says no. It is left to die. It's included in the halacha l'Moshe Sinai. It's included in that halacha. He said, furthermore, he said, Nishbach Adam, if the blood of the Sor Hashem spilled out, Yomas HaMishtaleach. The Mishtaleach is left to die. Mes HaMishtaleach, if the Sor HaMishtaleach died, Yishafech Adam, the blood is poured out. Then the blood has to be poured out. The Gemara will explain what this halach of Rabbi Yehuda is.